Thanks for braving the weather. Take off those wet raincoats and let's settle in for an amazing day of learning and skill building with some of the best and brightest talent in the nation. Now, would you please take a look at the beautiful brass kaleidoscopes on your tables? As a conference gift this year, we have one of these for each of you. And as will become clear as the day unfolds, we hope that you will be open to seeing things in a different way, that you will learn new skills and tools that will help you see in a different way. Because it is by seeing differently that we can perhaps let go of unhelpful assumptions and biases that may be preventing us from achieving the outcomes that we want. It just takes a small twist to substantially change the image in the scope. And we hope that each time you play with your kaleidoscope, you will relish the wonder and delight that comes from a little twist that changes your view, and remember the valuable ideas and skills that you learned about today. I'd now like to introduce our opening speaker. How lucky we are in Seattle to have such an articulate and thoughtful columnist as Jerry Large. A veteran journalist in communities around the country before joining the Seattle Times, Jerry's searing insight, impeccable prose, and authenticity contextualize everyday stories and news in new and sometimes unexpected ways. In some respects, Jerry is like that kaleidoscope, providing a little twist to allow people the opportunity to think differently. In working with him for this event, we've come to appreciate his soft-spoken delivery, which only serves to underscore the magnificence of what he has to say. Ladies and gentlemen, lend us your ears and your attention. This is Jerry Large, here to welcome us all to the conference.
All right, well, I would say thanks, John, but he raised expectations, and oh, heck. Thanks for inviting me to come and participate in this day with you. I think you're all in exactly the right place, partly because it's raining out there, but mostly because John, Bree, and the whole staff at SJI have put together a great day of learning and sharing that I think is going to send you away with more tools to do the work that you do and with renewed inspiration about that work. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about why I care about these issues and a little bit about what I know about them from my experience. And one thing I know for sure is that I'm standing here today wearing a suit because I was very lucky in a lot of ways. I was raised by a single parent, and when you're raised by a single parent, we all know the studies that show that what that means, especially when that parent is your father who's missing, and you're a boy. That has a lot of impact on what your life prospects are. Also, my mother, who raised 3 boys, dropped out of school at 15. We know what that means for your life prospects. We were in a family that was, as you might guess, in poverty. That has impacts on your life prospects. And we lived in a neighborhood where most of the other people, well, okay, all of the other people were also poor. So all of those things combined to have an impact on my life and on the lives of the people who were around me. So, I care about the work that you do because it impacts people that could have been me. But like I said, I was pretty lucky. So I know something from living in that situation that you're going to be talking about a lot today, and that is that people aren't poor because they are bad or that they've done something to bring that on themselves. I mean, there probably are a few who are, but in general, that's not the case. In fact, our country produces poverty as efficiently as it produces wealth, just not for everybody, right? So I want to talk about why I was in that situation and also how I managed to get out of it. I have to go back a little ways. My mother and my father were both raised in sharecropper families in Texas, right? My father in Clarksville, my mother in a little town called Marlin, Texas. And they, sharecropping is about that far from slavery, right? I mean, you don't have a chance to build a life when all you're doing is working. You're not really accumulating wealth. You're not even accumulating the kind of educational wealth that some people get, because the kids in sharecropping families have got to work too, because the family survival depends on it. And that was the case with my parents, my uncles, and my aunts. But they were all extremely hardworking people. So my mother, she also had a little bit of a harder start than some of those other kids, because her own mother died when she was shortly after she was born, and then her father was killed when she was 9, just as she turned 9. So she was on her own without much of a social service system to help her out there. Dropped out of school at 15 and began working. Partly she dropped out of school because she needed to support herself, and partly she dropped out of school because the school for black students where she was had topped out, right? I mean, they had one teacher who taught everybody from the beginning to the top, so she wasn't really learning a lot. But she made a life for herself and for us. I mean, she worked doing migrant farm work, which all of my aunts and uncles did. She worked cleaning houses. She worked in cafes. She worked a whole bunch of different jobs, because no one job paid enough to support us, right? I mean, so she had to work multiple ones. So that's something I know, is that people who are in poverty aren't in poverty because they're lazy. The people that I knew worked extremely hard. There was also something else that I was very lucky about, and that is that my mother said, when I was born, the doctor told her, I can tell by looking at this kid's eyes that he's going to be very smart, and you need to do everything that you can do to help him. Now, this doctor probably told everybody that. But, because what would he know at that point, right? But my mother really took this to heart. She would read to me, and she would make me read. Now, we didn't have a big library, right? We had the Bible. We had a book called 50 Famous Fairy Tales, a couple of other, but every day we had to read. She also would have us go over the math times tables, right? She was really good at that, and she'd write them up and stick them on the walls all over the house, and at random points call out, what's 9 times, and she would do things like that. That was really helpful when I got to school, and I knew stuff that other kids didn't know. It was awesome that she did that. I was also very lucky because I had my Uncle Will, who was a wonderful guy. I said my father wasn't there, but my Uncle Will would come and get me and take me to work with him. From the time that I was a very little kid and I couldn't do any work, I would just sort of hang on to him, and follow him around. And as I got older, he began to pay me to help him out a little bit. Now, my Uncle Will had a lawn care business. He did farm labor like everybody else, and he worked at a cattle feeding lot. He had a lot of different jobs. Everybody had a lot of different jobs. And he would always try to teach me things along the way. I mean, for instance, we had this one place that we would do the artwork that had a big gravel driveway, and we would drive. One of my jobs was to clean out the gravel that got onto the grass, because it'd pop out onto the grass. And one day he looked at what I was doing, and he said, "Come here." He was a man of very few words. "Come here." And he said, "Look at that, look at that, look at that." He was pointing out gravel that was still in the grass, and he said, "What do these people know about you? Do they know you?" And I shrugged, and he says, "No, they don't know you. They don't know anything about you. All they know about you is what they see when they come out here. and they said, oh, Jerry did this. And then they know what kind of person Jerry is. Well, he was doing that sort of thing all the time. He was great about that, and I learned a lot from him, and I learned a lot from him about working. He actually, you know how people help other people in their families get launched in life? Well, my family was like that too. And so my mother was hoping that she could get me a job as working at the packing plant where some of the other kids in my high school were working. My uncle had a great idea. He said, well, you know what, if you join Future Farmers of America and learn about agriculture, you can help me out, because he'd saved up his money and bought a small farm on the edge of town. He raised pigs and he raised chickens, and he said, I'm going to give you some pigs so that you can start your own business when you're out of high school. And I had some other ideas about what I might do after high school. It didn't involve pigs, but but it was good that he was always trying to find some way to help us. He was an extraordinary person, and so was my mother, but their prospects were very much limited by their situations. So most of the kids in the neighborhood where I grew up didn't wind up finishing school and going on to college. None of my cousins finished high school. My older brother didn't finish high school. My younger brother did. But their idea of what the prospects were for their lives were more limited, and mine was too. But people were always telling me that I had to do more, try harder. So I was fortunate that I had my second grade teacher who kept me after school and made me do things that I didn't want to do, and because she thought that I had potential. I was glad that for the high school teacher who made me take the ACT test. And I was glad for the person that my mother cleaned house for, who drove me to another town where the test was being given so that I could take that test. And, glad for the person who helped me get my first job. Glad for the person who, when I got to college and didn't have the money that I actually needed, to finish the year, figured out a financial plan for me that worked. And all of those things happen by luck, and it shouldn't be that way, right? I mean, it shouldn't just be a matter of luck. There should be some structure to that, some intentionality, so that more young people have a chance to reach whatever goals they would like to have, to do the maximum that their potential allows. So that's why I feel really good about what's going to be happening in this room today. Because you have an opportunity to help so many people do that. And the people who are going to be speaking to you today are people who didn't just sort of crunch numbers and look at reports. I mean, they actually got out and spent time getting to know people who are in circumstances that put boundaries around their lives so that they could better understand how you erase those boundaries. So what they have to offer you today is going to be awesome. I think you're going to have a really great day, and this is a great time for this. We have so much inequality in this country, and we're at one of those crossroads where we're trying to figure out who we want to be as a people, as a country. I just want to cheer you on as people who are making an actual real difference in people's lives every day, and that you are here trying to improve the way that you do that. So I thank you.
Thank you so very much, Jerry. Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Large.